Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Zig and today we'll be talking about The Last of Us Part 2 and more specifically about Abby. Yeah, the character that everyone hates. Before starting with the video, I have two things to say. First, this video will contain spoilers about The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2, so you might want to save this video for when you'll be done with your The Last of Us journey. Second, please, let's keep the comment section a safe, civil place. I know many people hated the game and this character, and I think you have every right to hate the game and the character. Sharing an opinion is never wrong. However, this video is about how I feel, and every kind of unjustified hate towards the game and the character won't be tolerated. With that said, let's get right into the video. Okay, so let's go back to earlier this year. I played The Last of Us and I was so hyped about The Last of Us Part 2 because The Last of Us has an amazing ending, but I couldn't afford it. So me and two friends of mine decided to buy the game together, and in July 2020 we would meet and play The Last of Us Part 2 as much as we could. The game felt amazing. Then we got to Joel's death. And here is the part where I addressed the big elephant in the room. Abby killed Joel. I'll be honest, I liked Joel in The Last of Us 1. My friends literally adored him, but I never fully enjoyed his presence in the game. I preferred Ellie. But when I got to that scene, I literally cried in front of my friends. They didn't know if I was laughing or crying, but I was actually crying. I thought, wow, this girl is a fucking monster. I was aware that Joel did bad stuff throughout his life and he killed a lot of people, but still, that girl was a fucking monster. She tortured him and killed him with a fucking golf club. That was insane. So here are my first impressions and thoughts about Abby, and most of you probably thought the same thing and agree with me. And when I finished Ellie's part of the story, I was pissed off. Because the story literally ends with a cliffhanger. I was hating Abby so much, and then it literally starts again with an Abby flashback. That drove me insane, and I was not having it, I swear. Me and my friends literally said, do I have to play as her now? For how long do I have to play as her? And even though my friends didn't want to know, I spoiled that for myself, and I found out that I would play as her for 15 hours, which meant that I had to play for the whole game again as Abby, because Ellie's gameplay part took me like about 15 hours, so I figured that out. The point is that I hated Abby and her friends, because Abby killed Joel, and Abby also killed Jesse. At one point, I also thought that Abby killed Tommy, but obviously that was not the case. And killing Abby's friends as Ellie made me feel kinda good, to be honest. They didn't look like good people at all. It was kind of a strange sensation. There was some satisfaction in it. So you're probably wondering why I'm making this video at this point. Because obviously looks like my reaction was the same as the one that many people had. So I recommend you get yourself some coffee or tea and relax, because I have a lot to say. Brace yourselves, this is going to be a long video. So when we start playing as Abby, we see her father. And to be honest, I don't feel like her dad as a person is interesting at all. But I almost immediately understood where they were going. Abby is one of those fragile people that hides their huge heart and insecurities behind a stone-cold facade. Her father's death really changed her in a way. When she was younger, she was insecure. We can definitely see that she's not firm. She doesn't know what to do when they're trying to rescue the zebra. I'll probably put some clips when needed in the video so that you can understand better what I'm saying. And we don't get to see Abby's real self during Ellie's story. But that's the point. Abby built these walls all around herself, and we get to see what's behind those walls only in Abby's story. Eventually, Abby eavesdrops on her father's conversation with Marlene. They are talking about what would be the consequence if they try to create a vaccine. And Abby's father tells Marlene that Ellie would obviously die. And we can see that Marlene gives him permission to operate Ellie, but just for the greater good. Because we see that Marlene herself loves Ellie and wouldn't want her to die. And this scene really shows us how hard it can be to make a decision. Abby's father has to try and put himself in Joel's shoes one way or another, but Abby comforts him and tells him that she would be happy to save the whole world if she had the opportunity. And this is the same thing that Ellie would do. So can we really blame Abby when Ellie would do actually the same thing? Abby's choosing for someone that she doesn't know, so she's not attached in any kind of way to Ellie. The game is helping us understand that Abby sees her father as a hero. He's literally saving the whole planet, and she's helping him do what's right, just to later find out that he's been killed because he tried to save the world. And mind you guys, I also understand that Joel loved Ellie, and that's totally fine. We all would have done the same thing if we were in Joel's situation. But just like we would have saved Ellie, we have to admit that we would have killed a person that was willing to and could save the whole world if we didn't know that person directly, because we are humans. Next, we get the chance to know Abby's everyday life, and here's when things really started clicking for me. I feel like during Ellie's story, the walls don't look like they care about each other a lot, and during this first section, we see how many people know Abby, how respected she is. She also has friends, like Manny is one of them, hence why he spits on Joel's body. He feels no pity for what Joel did to his best friend. That's how they see this situation. It's a whole another point of view. We also learn that she also loves the dogs at the WLFQA. The love, the respect, a place where she belongs. To her, it's not enough. She still feels the need to kill Joel. And that's proof of the pain that she feels. All the love, all the respect she's surrounded by isn't enough to fill that void. Abby goes on patrol with Manny and Mel. Mel is getting Owen's dick, and Owen is Abby's ex-boyfriend. Abby obviously still loves Owen, so that must be pretty bad. Abby still tries to show Mel support and also tells Manny that she shouldn't go on patrol. I think that this is showing us that Abby just wants Owen to be happy and doesn't enjoy feeling Mel distant. And let's be honest, Abby's right. Mel is fucking dumb for going on patrol while being pregnant, but that's a whole another story. We later learn from Nora that Owen might be in danger, since his patrol partner died, and that's when Abby asks Isaac to let her find Owen and get back home. Here we can see Abby's first big emotional reaction. She keeps looking at the floor, and whenever people try to comfort her, it's completely useless. She goes as far as rejecting Isaac's orders because it's obvious that to her, Owen is more important. And this is a huge hint. We are starting to see Abby's true colors. She doesn't buy the whole "it'll be fine" thing, because she's not as cold as she looks. She cares a lot about her loved ones. We also learned that Owen shot Danny, his patrol partner, to protect a Seraphite. I won't talk about it in depth now, but keep it in mind because it'll turn out to be very important later on in the video. Next we have a flashback. This flashback is very important to understand Abby's character. This is when we find out that Abby is afraid of heights and she decides to jump, even though she's probably shitting her own pants, because she's afraid Owen might drown. This is telling us one important thing about her. Owen is very important to her. So important that she's ready to face her fears for him. The flashback takes place 3 years in the past, and even though she loves Owen so much that she's ready to face her fears, she still looks hesitant when he tries to spend some quality time with her. And no, we're not talking about that quality time, we'll get to it later. And she looks hesitant because she wants to train. By the time this flashback occurs, Abby already knows that her father died because of Joel. And her hate for him, the pain she feels, can't be replaced by Owen's love. Just like time, or the respect that everybody had for her, couldn't replace the hate.
Please don't shoot. Joel, please get up. No! Fucking kill you.
Abby follows Owen. They go to the aquarium together and yada yada yada. Abby almost forgets about everything and they're about to have a romantic moment, but she reminds Owen that Joel is out there and that they might still make it in time for training. This is an extremely important moment for Abby. She's basically admitting that training so that she can fight and resist everything is more important than her relationship. Owen wants to live a simple life and be happy with her, make her happy. He doesn't even belong in a WLF. He's a free spirit and wants to share his freedom with Abby. But Abby doesn't want that happy life in the first place because she chose revenge over moving on. And that's why her design is so important. Many people attacked her design, but actually those muscles are very important because they are everything to her. They are her goals, they represent her goals. She needs those muscles in order to be strong enough to survive out there and kill Joel. There's a motive why she didn't kill Joel with a gun. She killed Joel with a golf club, using her own strength. Abby is exactly where Ellie is at the end of the game. Ellie needs to kill Abby, but Dina wants a happy, normal life. Same context here, but Abby went through it before Ellie, but with Owen. And both Ellie and Abby left it all behind to get their revenge. Now, flash forward to the present. Abby goes to the aquarium to tell Owen that she has a lead and that they might find Joel. Here we can tell that Owen is done with the whole revenge thing, but he decides to go with Abby anyway because he wants to stay by her side. And also, Mel accepted too, but Mel is kind of forgettable, isn't she? But we definitely see how uncomfortable both Owen and Mel look during Joel's death scene.
You are nothing but lucky.
You have no idea.
Don't get electricity in here. Where the fuck have you been?
There are solar panels on the roof.
And who are these people?
Appreciate it. I'm Mel, by the way.
Tommy. You're done.
You want what I want, right?
End it. Now.
And Owen is the one that makes sure Ellie and Tommy aren't getting killed. This is a very important detail because we see how this character is what creates a balance in Abby's life. Abby still chooses the path of revenge, but it doesn't mean she's willing to ignore Owen. And later on, Abby will understand Owen's action better, because at first she can accept his innocent side. Him being a kind free spirit is a strong contrast for someone whose heart is filled with hatred. But obviously her love for Owen is stronger than we think. Abby goes out in the wild to look for Owen, but the Seraphites capture her. Luckily, Yara and Lav save her ass, and Abby understands that they betrayed their group. So she decides to return the favor and sticks with them. Later we see Abby helping Yara with her arm and leave. This is the moment where we understand that yes, Abby doesn't feel an absolute hate like many other people in the WLF. She still has a big enough heart to judge people for who they are, and something is telling her that those kids are different and that she should not judge them or kill them just because they are part of the Seraphites. Abby, just like Owen, helped the Seraphites. This sets them apart from the WLF as a group and shows the player that deep down, Abby is still human. Eventually, Abby finds Owen at the aquarium and they have a confrontation about the same argument. Owen explains why he helped the Seraphites and killed Danny. Basically, he couldn't hide his emotions. and Abby understands, but still wants to go back to the WLFQA with Owen, because at the end of the day, that's everything she has. Deep down she knows that her revenge was not worth it, and she can't accept losing the only thing that she has left, the only thing that makes her feel human. On the other side we have Owen. He has understood that this ongoing war is making him crazy, and that violence is not what he wants. He needs to step back and be himself, and that's why he tells Abby that he's going to send a Barbara.
I can fix this. I'll talk to Isaac.
I am tired, Abby. I don't want to fight over land that I don't give a fuck about anymore. I'm going to Santa Barbara.
Abby has given up on the Fireflies and is obviously very bitter about it, and she feels the need to make Owen feel bad. Otherwise, she would have to face reality and accept that she chose revenge over making an effort to rise from the ashes. That's exactly why she gets mad at Owen. He tells her that she feels the same way. Abby has to face reality and her past, and that's too hard for her. And yeah, we are not discussing the sex scene, because that's just bad on both Abby and Owen's part, we know that. I get where it came from, it's not right at all, but I see how they couldn't run from it. But then we see Abby waking up from a nightmare. She dreamt of her father and his death, again. This might be something that many people missed out, but she's still having nightmares, because taking her revenge on Joel did not change anything in her life. She's still suffering. Joel was not the root over pain, and revenge is not the solution. She touches her own neck and feels the mark that the rope left on it. And this is what makes her think about Yara and Lev and how they're doing. And she's obviously worried and later decides to go and look for them. They go back to the aquarium together, and Abby knows that it is a good choice because Owen isn't like the rest of the wolves, and he and Mel could help Yara. The only obstacle is that they don't have what's necessary to operate Yara, so Abby and Lev decide to leave and get to the WLF hospital, and this is where Abby deepens her bond with Lev. Lev and Abby are exposed to the deepest and most personal, I'd say, parts of their character. Lev sees Abby's fear of heights and helps her overcome it, and it is interesting to notice how Lev remarks that his cousin is scared of heights, and Abby replies with, "Good for your cousin," which sounds funny, but now, talking seriously, we know for a fact that Abby is scared of heights. She's basically doing what she always does. She's trying to hide her insecurities and fragility to feel stronger than she is, to reject those who try to get through the walls she built around herself. But again, just like we've seen before, Abby is face to face with her fears. She must cross the bridges. She must face her fears. And Lev sees the rawest, most personal side of her personality. And this experience is not only important for Abby, this is also important for Lev, because Lev touches Abby's real self, just like Abby does with Lev. During day 2, the Seraphites keep calling Lev Lily, but we all know that Lev is trans. Lev is surprised because Abby is not asking openly if he's trans or not, obviously because the Seraphites have a very conservative mentality, and he's probably used to hear people talk shit about trans people all the time. But Abby obviously doesn't care about him being trans. She obviously realized that he is trans, but she didn't care. This shows that Abby actually isn't a superficial person. Abby is slowly distancing herself from the wolves, because she is realizing that she isn't the kind of person that belongs in the wolves. Just like Lev is distancing himself from the Seraphites. And during day 2, they both know the most fragile parts of each other, which is why they have such a strong bond. And Abby sees herself in Lev. Lev is going to lose everything, and Abby wants to give Lev all the love he needs. The love she kept inside herself to give space to anger and hatred. She obviously doesn't want Lev to go through what she had to go through, and honestly, I think it takes a lot of selflessness to do that. I also want to point out that even though Lev had distanced himself from the Seraphites, he still believes in their prophet, and Abby tries to get an insight into his beliefs and what the Seraphites believe in general. And she does that because she's trying to understand where Lev is coming from. She really is trying to open herself up. Even though she had given up on this possibility in the past, she's trying to turn page, and that takes a lot of strength. Okay, this was everything I had to say about this section of Seattle Day 2. Now, I think it's time to focus on Abby's arrival at the hospital. Abby lies and gets caught, but Nora saves her and hides her. She obviously will get in big fat troubles for doing that, which means that Nora and Abby have an important bond. Otherwise, she wouldn't risk that much just for her. I mean, she obviously doesn't want to risk everything by siding with her, but she's not going to let Abby drown in her own shit. And keep this in mind because it'll be very important later on. So far, we said everything we needed to say about Day 2. Abby gets the supplies and goes back to the aquarium with Lev. She feels at home. She seems happy watching him play with Alice, and the surgery is a success and Yara is now okay. Yeah, now she has one arm, but at least she's not dying. Abby and Owen find themselves having a conversation, and Abby asks Owen, "What happened to us?" And Owen answers, "Maybe we stopped looking for the light."
What happened to us?
Maybe we stopped looking for the light.
This is actually a very meaningful scene. Abby has now found in Lev the strength to look back and think of her past. Watching Lev bond with Alice makes her happy. She has seen what the WLF is capable of, and she doesn't feel at home anymore. But she considered the WLF the place where she belonged for a long time, and she's questioning herself. Was the revenge worth it? She's asking to Owen because she knows that he is done with this kind of life, and he wants to move on. Owen answers, "Maybe we stopped looking for the light, not only because Abby really gave up on looking for the fireflies, but also because she has lost sight of who she really is." She gave in and focused on 8, when in reality she could have chosen the path to happiness, and she had to make a mistake to understand that she was wrong. Later, Abby will dream of her father, but she doesn't dream of his death. This scene reminds me of when Joel smiles at Ellie at the end of The Last of Us Part 2. She's not having nightmares anymore, because she's finally finding peace within herself. Because it wasn't revenge the key to peace, it was love and forgiveness. So, Day 3. We are approaching the end of Abby's journey. We learn that Mel doesn't feel like Abby really cares about Lev and Yara. Mel thinks that it is impossible for a ruthless scar killer like Abby to become this kind in such a short period of time, and accuses Abby of pandering to Owen. Mel thinks Abby is trying to win Owen's heart again, and is obviously and rightfully pissed at them for sleeping together. Abby obviously understands that it is the reason why Mel is mad at her, and tries to explain herself, but Mel straight up tells her that she's a shitty person. And many people probably thought that this was the best moment in the entire game because Abby is a pretty hated character, but actually I think Mel is a bitch. She has every right to be mad, don't get me wrong, but she's letting her emotions take over, and Abby is obviously triggered by what Mel said, because for her, it's like reliving every bad emotion she was starting to leave behind successfully. Abby starts crying because she always thought she was a shitty person for what she did, but she wouldn't accept it because otherwise her revenge would have become a failure. The real Abby wouldn't do what this Abby really did. She killed thousands of people because she needed a facade. She had accepted her past. She could move on, but Mel made her crumble again. And when Yara calls her, Abby makes sure Yara can see her cry. And this is the truth. Abby is not okay with herself for what she did. Abby is not okay with her past. Abby is actually a fragile, insecure person that is trying to do better. Okay, so back to day 3. Lev decides to go back to his village to find his mother, even though his mother is a piece of shit and despises him for being himself and yada yada yada. She's a bitch. That's the point. And Abby talks with Yara about the Seraphite's traditions, Lev being trans and going against the will of his own people and yada yada yada. There is nothing really important here to talk about, except I think that Abby feels connected to Lev for his story. We later see Abby talking to Owen, and Owen mentions that kids love Abby. And that's when Abby turns her head to the right. She obviously feels discomfort and is scared to show her emotions, especially after what Mel told her. And I think this proves even more how fragile Abby actually is. She even admits to herself that she wants to go to Santa Barbara, but decides not to because she doesn't want to be a problem for Owen and Mel. Yara and Abby decide to leave to find Lev. Owens wants to go with them, but Abby decides to go against his will and suggests him to stay at the aquarium to repair the sailboat, which is obviously a way to keep him away from herself, and obviously she would be really happy if Owen went with them. But she decides to make the right decision, putting aside her own wishes. Eventually, Abby meets Manny, her best friend, on her way to the Seraphite's village, and they run from a sniper. Tommy kills Manny, Abby's best friend, right in front of her. She can't even say goodbye, because she needs to run away and find Lev, who is still in danger. Abby has lost her best friend. Abby has lost her lover, and she has to accept it if she really wants to be the best version of herself. She doesn't have a home anymore, because she understood that the WLF is not where she belongs. She has found her home in Lev, but he's in danger now. She's about to lose everything, and unfortunately, this is not the end. And let's not mention that now Nora is dead, and she was a good friend of hers. Luckily, Abby and Yara managed to find Lev. He found his mother, but he had to kill her for self-defense. They are on their way back to the aquarium, but they get ambushed by a WLF patrol, and Yara gets shot. Unfortunately for Abby, Isaac is with them. This moment represents a choice for Abby. She realized that she doesn't belong in the wolves, but she can't run. She has to choose. She obviously chooses Yara and Lev. Isaac is going to kill Abby, but Yara shoots him right before he manages to pull the trigger, which causes Yara'S death. Abby and Lev don't have a choice anymore. The Last of Us world is a ruthless one, and they can only run in the hope they manage to save themselves. Lev is obviously sad and can't accept Yara'S death. He's even mad at Abby because his emotions are taking over, but Abby tells him that he is her family. And this is when we understand that Abby has chosen to be happy with Lev, and that she'll do whatever it takes to protect him. She almost lost everything, and she decided that losing Lev was not an option this time around. Lev chooses Abby too, and they use the war as the perfect scapegoat to go back to the aquarium. But once back, Abby and Lev find Mel and Owen on the floor. They are dead. This is an important moment for Abby's development. She spent all this time questioning herself, trying to understand what was wrong or right, coming to terms with her past, trying to find a place where she belonged, trying not to hurt other people in the process. She started thinking that maybe all that pain was worth it, because she could turn page. But unfortunately, she lost everything she had in one day. Her best friend, Manny, her lover, Owen, the person that made her regret her own choices, that died anyway in the end. Mel, she lost her dog, Alice, and she lost a friend, Yara. She has also lost Nora, but she doesn't know. We obviously know that Ellie killed most of these people. And we also know that Ellie was shaken as fuck when she found out that Mel was actually pregnant just like Dina, and didn't even notice that she had left the map that she used to track down Abby on the floor. Lev finds the map that Ellie dropped and shows it to Abby. Abby understandably thinks that Tommy killed her friends, since she knows that he went after her and killed Manny, and that's when she thought, maybe I am wrong. The path to revenge was the right one all along. The rest is history, and we know how it ends. She goes to the theater, finds Tommy, she's about to shoot him, but then Jesse and Ellie get there in time, but Jesse dies in the process. Tommy loses one eye, Ellie confesses that she's the one that Abby's looking for, and they fight to death. Or almost. We know that this is a difficult part of the game. We all obviously felt bad, and I honestly couldn't decide whose side I was on. In retrospective, I'd say I was on Abby's side, but obviously it was actually really hard for me to attack or kill Ellie because I love her. Probably for most of you guys it was the same, if not the other way around. What's interesting about this section is the last scene. It's the scene that reveals a lot about Abby's growth. It's kind of a climax. She went from being vengeful to questioning herself and fighting her insecurities to going back into the spiral of revenge. So basically now Ellie is KO, and during this whole segment I was wondering where the fuck Dina was. For a second I thought she entered like a wormhole to another universe, but turns out it is not it. She shows up, she's like, "Fuck you Abby, let my wife go," and yells at Abby like there's no tomorrow. She keeps stabbing her, but then Lev shoots an arrow and hits her right in the shoulder. Abby then proceeds to smash Dina's head to the ground, then takes the knife that Dina used to stab her and points it against her throat. But then Ellie says stop and tells Abby that Dina is pregnant. Abby replies with, "Good, good, really," that's all she says. And this is where many people had a problem with Abby. Maybe some of you really wanted to feel bad for her, but could not because of this line. I honestly understand this. Abby has a point. She's on a rampage. She went through a ton of shit in such a short amount of time, and Ellie also killed all her friends and Mel, who yes, wasn't Abby's best friend, but she was still a comrade and the mother of Owen's child. Why would she care about Dina? I'm not saying Dina deserves it. I love Dina to death and I think she's amazing. But from Abby's point of view, it makes sense to be honest. Luckily, Lev saves the day and asks Abby indirectly to stop, and Abby understands that by killing Dina, she's doing exactly what Ellie did and she would end up in the revenge spiral again. I think that making her choose not to kill Dina was an amazing choice, because Dina is a pregnant woman, just like Mel was, and a soon-to-be mother, just like the one that Lev lost. And not because of his own choices. And it makes sense for Abby to be wise this time around and not repeat the same mistake again. She already killed Jesse and hurt Tommy. She understands that he should stop here, because she already chose not to lose Lev, and she knows that Lev wouldn't accept such violence. Once again, Abby makes mistakes, but she puts what's right above herself, once again, and this time it is once and for all, because she's finally putting revenge aside and choosing a path of happiness with Lev. So from now on, Abby's goal will be to reach the Fireflies with Lev. They managed to make contact with the new Fireflies on Catalina Island through a radio in the basement of 2425 Constance, and there is really nothing I have to say about this segment. What's interesting to me is the next section, because Abby and Lev meet the Rattlers, and Lev gets hit. In that exact moment, Abby screams, and Laura Bailey did an amazing job, because we can tell how much pain she feels in that moment. Lev is very important to her, and I cannot understand how people can call Abby a selfish, shitty character, because all I see here is a fragile, insecure girl with a huge heart that had to become something she is not, and accepted a hard reality just to survive. And eventually she found the right path, which is not an easy thing to do. It is not easy. And I think this game represents perfectly human feelings and us as human beings in general. The last thing I want to point out is that Abby refuses to fight against Ellie in the very final section of the game. She only accepts when Ellie threatens to kill Lev. Abby doesn't want to fight anymore because she finally found peace. She doesn't really care about those bad feelings she left behind. She doesn't have her muscles anymore, and she's way skinnier. Those same muscles, the muscles that she needed to get her revenge, aren't there anymore. The Rattlers took from her the thing that she worked for the most during the past years, and for her, it is a sign of a new path. So this is it. This is my analysis and why I think that Abby Anderson is an amazing character. I actually think that she's the best character that was written for The Last of Us Part 2. She doesn't deserve all the hate she gets, and I feel like people didn't really give her a chance. I get that many are mad at her for killing Joel, but if we were able to live Joel's story through his eyes, why can't we live Abby's through hers? Yeah, I agree, we spent only 3 days with her, whereas we spent a year with Joel and Ellie, but this story isn't only about their bond, and has a totally different message. This is not The Last of Us Part 1, this is The Last of Us Part 2, and this time around we have a story about forgiveness. And I feel like trying to put ourselves in someone else's shoes is the best way to embrace it. If you still hate Abby, maybe you have your reasons, but I hope that now, at the end of this video, you'll be able to at least understand a bit better her character and why she is loved by many of us. So yeah, this was everything for today's video, so make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Feel free to leave a comment because I would love to read your opinions, and yeah, that's it. I will see you all in the next video. Bye.